Well, Aaron, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thank you. So do we just like pretend that we're podcasting, or like how does this work?
Well, you already have given away the secret, which is that we're back together in a moment of crazy AI news.
Yes.
But this time, we're doing it in front of a live audience.
It's real.
And in front of the first ever public event for big technology. And we're fully sold out with 130 people here with us in Manhattan. This is going to be the first of many. And listen, the audience isn't going to believe me. So I would love it if you guys could make some noise and let everybody who's listening to the recording know that you're here. Let's hear you.
And there's simply no way we could have faked that. So that had to be authentic and real.
It brings us to sort of the topic of our discussion, which is the latest in AI. And of course, there's everything from synthetic images, synthetic text, synthetic voice, synthetic video, which we heard a little bit about from Google recently. But let me give you my big picture here, now that the dust has settled a little bit from Google I/O. My perspective is that we haven't exactly seen the groundbreaking stuff that's been promised, right? We were looking at GPT-5 and AI sentience, but we haven't gotten that yet. So am I right in thinking that, yes, we've had some
You are very impatient if that's your issue.
Well, I'm setting you up to own me at the beginning of this discussion. But I do want to know, is there something that we should be thinking about in terms of what's going on right now that doesn't look at what we just saw over the past few weeks, which, yes, they were impressive, but they're not this sort of promised godlike AI that everyone keeps talking about and waiting for this GPT-5 moment.
So you were unimpressed by GPT-4o?
I wouldn't say I was unimpressed, but I would say given
Did you see that video where the guy was doing like a job interview and then her little thing was like explaining like how he should look different? I mean, this is like psychotic technology. I mean, this is incredible.
I don't deny it. But I also think you have to understand where I'm coming from. Which is that a lot of people, when they saw, well, actually, that's now the past. But a lot of people, when they saw this stuff, were just like, reasonably or not, and I'm just trying to channel the audience. Where's this audience? The audience on X, which we know is the most reliable audience on tech.
The X people are crazy.
Yeah, well, we're going to read some of your posts, so let's see who's crazy at the end of this. But
how do you think I know how crazy they are?
Oh, that is a good point. So, but I guess, where would you say we are right now? And why haven't we had that sort of step change? Because this is the thing. We talk about the GPTs, and it very quickly becomes old. Like GPT-4 is pretty impressive. But it already feels like old news, and people want something new, and they want to feel like that aha moment that ChatGPT brought, and we haven't had that yet. Now they're impressive.
I just think these people are sound like heroin addicts. Like I just need another breakthrough.
Well, they do call tech people users, and that's, it sort of fits.
Fair. It comes with the territory. So I mean, I basically don't agree with the premise. I think that this is the craziest technology ever, and it's entirely reasonable that we will see this in sort of step change, in its kind of step change fashion. So if you think about it, we're like 18 months into the initial ChatGPT moment. We have seen breakthrough after breakthrough in the past 18 months on AI model performance, on AI model effectively intelligence. When you look at the evals that these AI models are put up against, when you think about one interesting metric is context window, which is the amount of basically data I can put into the AI model or get back from the AI model. And at the start of ChatGPT in, let's call it November of 2022, the context window was somewhere on the order of about 4,000 tokens. Just yesterday, Sundar announced 2 million tokens on the latest Gemini model. So when you think about it, there's like not that many technologies literally in the world that see an improvement at the rate of 500x in 18 months. And that's basically what we're seeing in AI. So that's obviously one metric of performance improvement, but it you kind of look across the board, whether it's the cost of tokens dropping, whether it's the improvement rate that we're seeing, all of this is building the foundation for now downstream, I think, an incredible amount of innovation. And then you look at just literally on Monday, the GPT-4o Omni model is also another breakthrough, just in terms of obviously you always have to kind of look at these demos and say, okay, how much of that was really just like the perfect demo, and they they kind of knew it would work well in that situation. I think we can chalk up some of the use cases to that. But I'd say ChatGPT and OpenAI generally have been incredibly intellectually honest stewards in this space. And so when you see a demo from them, it tends to actually work like that in practice. So that ability to have multimodal experiences where you have video in and audio out, or video in and text out, in basically real time because it's in the same model. I mean, this is going to produce some pretty incredible just both personal experiences and then not even touching on what's possible in the enterprise. So I think first of all, I think we should actually probably be glad that we don't have this sort of breakthrough AGI experience yet, because we actually need some time to sort of just pace ourselves, frankly, in the deployment of this. I sent a video of the sort of interview, the interview example, and if you haven't seen this, please watch it. This person sort of takes a video of themselves in real time. They're talking to the GPT-4o model, saying, do I look presentable for this interview, and it's giving it feedback. I sent that to my parents, and basically they're like, well, like we basically don't need humans anymore, and so like to somebody like that, like this is AGI. Like we could stop right here and probably be done with AI for like a decade, and you've already solved like hundreds of use cases that are these breakthrough, kind of situations. They have another video of somebody who basically, uses AI to see the world. They're basically blind, and they see the world, and they're able to now communicate, with AI to have so much more capability than they would have had before. So these are just incredible technologies, just even in the current form, let alone when we actually get access to GPT-5 and so on.
And the place I thought you were going to go first was really the cost, because that's the thing that you've really harped on over the past few days. I'm trying to anticipate your answer. I'm like, all right, he's definitely bringing up the cost thing, and I think it's worth spending a minute on it, which is that OpenAI has made the cost of GPT-4o 50% of what it was. Previously. And for you're working with a lot of AI. I mean, just talk a little bit about what that does for the industry, for anyone who's building on top of this stuff, in terms of its ability to be a profitable investment and to be something that is more ubiquitous than it is now.
Yeah, so there's probably, so there's basically three dimensions that AI is going to need to improve on before you even worry about kind of agentic-like experiences. So even kind of bookmark that. You have effectively let's say more or less the quality of the models. So how do these models perform on evals? And these evals are basically throw a bunch of problems at AI models, and then you get a sort of a shared benchmark across how different models perform. So Llama 3 versus GPT-4 versus Gemini, and you get to see sort of how it does against the LSATs or MBA courses and so on. So one is sort of model quality. We've already seen that the latest GPT-4 models and kind of the GPT-4 class, in many respects, perform better than humans at a large number of tasks, but in some areas are still deficient and not yet at kind of human level performance. So model quality is sort of one vector that we need to continue to get performance on. And you can just extrapolate and imagine, GPT-6, let's say, is like we're like at 99% human level, and then GPT-7 is like 99.9, and then GPT-8 is 99.999. So we'll see some type of asymptoting, but eventually you're just going to continue to get better and better model quality. That's sort of vector one. Vector two is how much data can I put in the model, and this has previously been something that was very limited. Actually, a large reason why, frankly, I think so many of us were not yet sort of figuring out how big of a breakthrough this was back in the GPT-2 days. The base, like all you could give it was like a couple hundred effectively characters. Or tokens, and that was basically all you were working with. So it was very hard to kind of imagine, sort of next token prediction when you can only give it a limited amount of data and context. And now we sort of have breakthroughs now with, again, 2 million token context windows. That's a massive breakthrough. So number one is quality. Number two is how much data can I put in the model. And number three is cost, and sort of then the performance of the model. Actually, I should probably add just one more, which is speed. But with cost and speed kind of come in a little bit of the same dimension. So when you have what you saw on Monday, GPT-4o drops by 50%. Literally, you can just think about it as I just took the ability to have intellectual capacity And one day it cost X amount, and now it costs 0.5X, like overnight. That's pretty crazy when you think about that. And the fact that we've now done that, or not we, I mean, OpenAI has basically done that, I don't know, 4 or 5 times in the past 18 months. So we're already maybe a tenth of the total amount of cost of a kind of fairly high quality token just in the past year and a half since the kind of first version of ChatGPT. So this is a breakthrough because if you have a use case with AI a year and a half ago, that may have been slow, you may have had to hack around it, and it may have been relatively expensive. And a year and a half later, it's much cheaper. You don't have to hack around it because you can give the model a lot of data, and it's much more intelligent. So it doesn't take that much imagination to say, well, in 18 months from now, what am I going to be able to then create and build? And so you just sort of watch these curves, and I mean, the implications I think are going to be massive for startups, mostly positive, a couple of kind of question marks, which is if you're watching this curve, you probably should be building software for what is going to exist in 3 years from now as opposed to today, because you don't want to be building software that sort of assumes that the tokens are expensive and they're not that high quality and they're kind of slow. So we spent a lot of time thinking about, like, are we designing a system that is sort of, kind of just covering up some of the shortcomings of AI right now, or should we design a system that will work really, really well in a year and a half from now as we get more of these improvements? And that's, the ongoing battle, I think, of anybody building AI, startups is do you build for what you have today? Do you build for what might exist in the future? How do you avoid getting disrupted from the model, just sort of kind of basically building in your value proposition directly in the model itself? So many questions, but ultimately I think, one of the most, if not the most exciting time in history to be building software.
And I would definitely want to get back to this idea of what we should be building, or what software companies and startups should be building. But as we talk about the cost of intelligence coming down, it does make me think, like, is there a viable business model for all these companies that are spending hundreds of billions or tens of billions of dollars training models and then selling this intelligence at lower and lower rates? And one of the data points that I think about here is OpenAI, in the middle of this whole Sam Altman thing, when he was fired and then brought back in, they were in the middle of a reported fundraise that was going to put them at, $100 billion? We haven't heard anything about that yet. So maybe that's a little bit because of they wanted to make sure the board was settled, but what are the economics for these companies? And is this really sustainable for them to keep providing this for less and less cost? I mean, a 50% cost is a big deal.
Well, what ultimately matters is what is their cost, and then so one would theorize that they have come up with algorithm improvements and model improvements where their underlying costs of running the tokens through have now dropped by, let's say, 50% or whatever. Obviously, it's sort of hard to pin down because there's no public information on their gross margins. But in general, I'm guessing that they've done something that has driven efficiency, that has made their cost structure lower, and so then they're basically kind of giving us that cost structure improvement as customers. So then their theory is, well, if we drop the price by 50%, do you basically get more than a 2x in usage and volume? And I would argue that basically at every point in AI performance improvement, that sort of trade has basically come true, which is if you could make, again, kind of you wave a magic wand and you say, like, we have GPT-5 or GPT-6 and it costs like a tenth of what today GPT-4 costs, I would argue that you'll probably get 100x more usage of AI, not just 10x more usage of AI. And so at some point, maybe that plateaus, but we're like nowhere near the point where a lowering of cost doesn't sort of disproportionately impact what you can now build, which then impacts more volume. This is actually an interesting thing. If you looked at, I have no kind of interesting anecdotes on this. You should probably do the research. But in the very early days of cloud computing, everybody looked at the size of the server market. And they basically said, well, if these servers are in the cloud, we should kind of take the size of the server market and maybe shave off some of that spend, because as it goes to the cloud, it gets more efficient, and because you have shared capacity, so you get less underutilized capacity. And a lot of the kind of total addressable market analysis of cloud computing was looking at the historical usage level of on-prem data centers, and that's totally fair, because that's kind of like all you could really do if you're doing that analysis. But what they didn't realize was, as you created sort of on-demand computing resources, it meant that literally every developer on the planet could now actually have access to servers. And you could just like start a company tomorrow and then use computing capacity, which you didn't do when you were a startup 25 years ago because you just like couldn't, put servers in a data center. So like you just didn't start the company in the first place. So all of a sudden, the cloud computing scale was like 10 times larger than what you used to do in data centers. And so, similarly, as you get the cost drops of either the GPUs themselves get cheaper or model efficiency gets better, you'll see just a massive increase in utilization. So I think the business model is still very good for the top, let's say, 5 or so model providers. Where you will run into a question is, could you be the 15th LLM, training company? That seems tough, especially if your job is to do kind of horizontal LLMs. I think that'd be less likely to work. You also have this battle of like something like a Mistral, which was for a period and maybe still ongoing, was like a massive breakthrough in open source AI, and then Meta one day decides to just exceed all the benchmarks with Llama 3. So I think there will be some parts of the market where there's going to be a lot of competition and it'll be hard to kind of figure out what the business model looks like. But in general, I think the business model of providing high quality, cheap, highly scalable tokens, if you're anywhere in the top 3 for quite some time, is going to be fine. And then ultimately, like if you're a hyperscaler in the cloud, what you really want is all of our workloads. You just want us to build our full application on your tech stack. So you're not really trying to make that much margin on the AI itself. You actually want like the data, you want the compute, you want the storage. So I think the business models will all continue to be fine to continue to give away this technology at a lower and lower price.
Okay, and so I started our discussion talking about how disappointing this release was.
Yeah.
I mean, let's actually talk about the impressive stuff, right? One of the things that I saw over the past at these events within OpenAI and Google was that these models have an ability to reason, right? They seem to be able to take problems and then break them down to their component parts and then go through step by step. It's not like the traditional ask a question to an LLM and it will give you an answer. It looks actually like something that's smarter.
Yeah.
So did you pick up on that reasoning capabilities? Because we had this whole like moment in the Sam Altman thing where like that people talked about this Q-star model, which could reason and did math. And I watched some of these demos and I'm like, is that it?
Yeah. So I think things like reasoning, we're still very early on. There's anybody now deep in the AI space, you're going to hear us all talk about this idea of agents and kind of what is this agent-like behavior or agentic behavior that you can have in AI models, which really moves from going to an AI model, asking a question, and then just basically getting the text output or audio output of what that model is producing, to actually giving it a problem that is often multi-step in nature, maybe interacting with other systems, i.e. other tools, and how do you kind of put that all together where a single AI model connected to these tools can actually produce effectively an agent that really can actually execute full tasks and processes. So we saw, maybe slight examples from that both on Monday in the OpenAI announcement and then yesterday in the Google announcements. I'd say both at a very high level, just because actually so much of this space is still at a pretty high level. There's, if you go and ask like 10 AI startups that are doing anything with agents, you'll probably get, more or less 10 different architectures of kind of how the agent actually functions. But what is at least similar to all of them is the LLM or the model is really acting as the reasoning engine and basically the brain for kind of coordinating and executing tasks across other systems and software, and which is a very exciting concept because again, a year and a half ago, I think what we thought, or at least we internally thought and what we saw from startups was, this is like this, it's like a chatbot wave, and the chatbot was really just like the best kind of way to manifest AI to get people to see the power of it. But the chatbot is just like one of 1,000 modalities that we might have with AI. When you start to think about the AI is not something that you just chat back and forth with, but instead it's sort of a reasoning engine for anything that you want software to do. It opens up a very different world of possibilities.
And what about the personalities of these bots that we're going to see?
Yeah.
I mean, after OpenAI did its release event, Sam Altman tweeted out her. The bot was just extremely flirty, and then it didn't work the next day. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, if they were trying to build an AI girlfriend, they nailed it. Super flirty in the first interaction, doesn't answer your text the next day. Aaron, what do you think about the...
Do I have to answer that question?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you think about their attempt to build her?
I mean, I do not know the internal, kind of workings of how did the voice get kind of tuned to be the most, interactive and engaging, voice.
That's a fun way to describe flirting, but
okay,
yes.
Okay. Engaging as a euphemism. I thought about that for about 3.2 seconds when I saw it. And obviously it'll be like a big controversy online, but the market will effectively decide what voice we want from these things. And I expect, OpenAI, Google, et cetera, to kind of land on what's the right equilibrium of kind of, okay, a little bit too creepy versus like way too robotic and utilitarian. And so somewhere in there is probably the sweet spot. And I think we'll kind of go, and do a little bit of pendulum swinging until we find that. And
you spoke about this in the beginning, and I don't want to gloss over it. This capability for the AI to be a tutor.
Yeah.
Right? I want you to kind of unpack how important this is, because this can really change the equation for parents where everyone has this idea, okay, sit the kid with the laptop, but if you can set the kid with an actual tutor that's going to work with them, personalized through the notes.
Yeah.
And not only that, but Google had this example. It can listen in on a PTA meeting for you and take the notes there and tell you what happened.
Yeah.
It's almost like taking AI and putting parenting on autopilot, and everyone's going to be like, that's weird and creepy, but it also is in the best cases, this technology gives us more time to do the human stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And if you have more time to actually be a parent to your kid, be caring with them, be present with them, as opposed to having to go through this work with them, I think that's could be a pretty special thing.
Yeah, I don't know statistics on parenting globally on tutoring and how many parents are good tutors, but let's just
not many.
Okay, well, so let's just assume that a significant portion of kids do not grow up with the highest quality tutor access. I got lucky because my dad was sort of into that and my mom as well, but let's just say that's not the case everywhere. So obviously if you could make AI freely available globally that was as smart of a human, and you had the interaction paradigm work where I can just interact with it to learn, that is only a good thing for humanity. It would be literally impossible to say I want to shut that down or I don't want that to exist. We can talk about all the implications of, okay, how do you make sure that it's as available as possible and bias and all these other things, but the idea that we could basically democratize access to knowledge and tutoring and help and education to everybody on the planet is basically a good thing. And that's just one of the many examples of, I think, the power of AI, especially in the consumer side. Take that for healthcare, take that for basically any kind of subject that I want to be educated on. Take that for just learning how to code. I mean, the amount of sort of the easing of the on-ramp of what we as people, spend a lot of time learning, and let us explore more spaces to figure out what are the areas and domains that we want to go really deep in. That is just a very good thing for the world.
Okay. It's become a tradition on Big Technology Podcast to do a segment where we read Aaron his tweets and make him explain them. So let's do that now.
We can also stop that today. That's not something that has to continue. So
okay. Let's continue it.
Okay.
So let's see.
The problem with reading tweets is it never sounds like when I wrote it. So it's just it's a totally different time in the day. It's a different voice. But go for it. I just don't know. I mean, you're gonna read something. Everyone's gonna be like, "That's not that insightful," and then I'm gonna be embarrassed, and then I'll have to explain myself. But go for it.
No. Okay. I handpicked them because I think they're gonna start good discussions.
Okay.
And if this sucks, I'll retire the segment. I promise.
Okay.
So this kind of goes to the agent thing. A large portion of business problems are constrained by how much time any given problem takes to solve and the number of people you have to solve it. AI flips this by creating a world where we can solve problems by essentially throwing more compute at them.
Yeah. Do we just...
Yeah, you riff on that.
Oh, riff on that?
Yeah.
Just riff on my tweet?
Yeah.
Okay. It's in the tweet. I mean, the only riff I could add is that, there's this. The only reason I wrote that was just classically in business, you sort of have this term of let's throw more bodies at the problem, and obviously that just means just how much headcount do you have? We'll throw more bodies at this engineering problem, at this sales problem, at this whatever the thing is. And it's kind of crazy to think about a world where you would just say, let's throw more compute at the problem. And the equation goes from, okay, I got to call the HR team, I got to make sure we have budget, we have to go hire a lot of people, to now it's like, well, do you want like 100 leads or 1,000 leads or 10,000 leads? And that's not going to be driven by how many people I hire. It's going to be driven by how much compute I have. Do I want to, test 90% of my software for bugs, or 95% of my software bugs, or 100% of my software for bugs? It's not, again, how many, let's say, test cases I write or quality engineers I hire, it's how much compute I throw. So you can kind of, work through like how much of business now can become a problem where we can throw compute at the problem to basically solve it. And it's just like a different way to think about, organizing your company, how you scale your company, and ultimately, the role of kind of intellectual labor inside of a business.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a good segment.
Okay, got it. Okay. You're not biased in any way, but perfect. Okay.
I did come up with the segment. The cool thing about this is another one. The cool thing about AI is that Zuck is unleashed. There's a brand new platform opportunity. The market is early and up for grabs, and there will be multiple winners. And it uniquely leverages the strengths of Meta. The breakthroughs in this space will continue to be wild.
Great tweet. Yeah. Just riff again.
I'm telling you. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I'm just supposed to describe the
why Meta
tweet?
in particular is positioned, and what is Zuck Unleashed?
Zuck Unleashed is just. I mean, did you see his birthday photos? I mean, the guy's
awesome.
unleashed. You have. So I don't know if anybody was around in like the mid to late 2000s doing web stuff, but you had this conference called F8. And sort of Facebook was at the center of basically web software in sort of the consumer world, where they created the social graph, you built your application kind of using their APIs. That was sort of like they were really driving the web forward. And unfortunately, I think mobile probably sort of slowed that down a bit, because the conversation then really flipped to iOS and mobile platforms. And so, you had all of this energy and technical talent from Meta that was kind of underutilized in a mobile world, and they didn't have any platforms. So that is sort of where the metaverse came from, and where Oculus came from was, I think, Zuck's entrepreneurial spirit on like, well, let's build a platform that we own and that everybody can build in. And I think just the reality is that at the scale probably that they would have wanted, we're not all in the metaverse yet. So you basically have this incredible entrepreneur with insane resources, both in engineering and CapEx, that has kind of been a little bit held back because he hasn't had a platform to be able to unleash into the world. And now there's this spot that's open, which is open source AI, is not owned by anybody. And so he's got all of the right resources for it. He's got basically the entire industry rooting for it to work, because we all benefit. The cheaper he can make AI models and the better he can make AI models, we all win. Because either that will mean that OpenAI and Google will want to work even harder and lower their costs, or we just literally have an open source AI model that we then don't pay any kind of fees for, which is incredible, other than the cost of the GPU. So he's got all of this kind of pent up energy. This is just me, just like imagining, how he's thinking about it. And you watch his videos and you can kind of see like he knows he's onto something, which is he can kind of win in this open source AI world, which is going to be a very, very big space to be a part of. And then commercially, I think it's always good if your kind of direct competitors, do not win, a large portion of kind of what the zeitgeist is sort of talking about and focused on. So it's good if he has some way to kind of, defend against, let's say how big Google gets or OpenAI gets in this world. And then on the offense side, he can probably just make more money if he has people spending more time on his platform and asking questions and getting, recommendations for things to buy, and all of that will be powered by AI in the future. So I think it's both going to be a commercial success, and I think it's like strategically something that is going to look, like a very good decision in the long run.
All right, let's go to the other member of the cage match, Elon.
Okay.
You said finally got around to trying the latest Tesla full self-driving last night. Can't confirm it's wild. Is it actually, does it feel like real autonomous driving, or is there still fear for people's life when they're in there?
Well, those could be the same thing. So it might be that real autonomous driving, you still fear for everybody's life because you're just like, I do not know how this works. Like, this is kind of alchemy. This is crazy. But it was definitely, very crazy. It was a very, kind of relatively boring suburban kind of trip, but it was like there was just zero need to ever interject. I mean, you have to kind of show that you're still paying attention. But it shows again. We're like the past year, and certainly for the next couple of years, you get the sense that we're going to see hundreds of these like early previews about the future, which is just pretty exciting. Like, I've just never seen a period where in any given week you could see 2 to 3 things which are just like, obviously that's going to be the future. Maybe it doesn't work perfectly right now, but it's like there's nothing that is stopping it from working perfectly in a world of more compute and just more breakthroughs on the models themselves, and that is kind of where we're at right now.
It's pretty cool.
It's really cool. It's really
It'd be nice if that happens because obviously we have way too many traffic deaths. All right, cutting room floor. I won't ask you to react to these, but
okay, thank you.
Just for time.
Okay.
But you have VCs when .ai is in the name, and there's a bunch of people doing some like parkour off of buildings. And then
so you're going to verbally explain visual tweets. This is
good.
That is
podcasting,
aggressive.
man.
That is aggressive. Oh my god.
And then there's
I'm looking at screenshots of videos right now. So this is
This is actually a screenshot of this is
okay.
This is everybody wants small government until there's something they want to ban, and it's Ron DeSantis standing up in front of a table of lab-grown meat.
Yes. Also, do I need a riff?
Why did you get that one?
What was that?
You can give it 60 seconds on that.
Okay. No. I mean, it was just. I mean, I think that was also kind of pretty straightforward. Without conveying my political views, I just found it ironic that the party of like we want the smallest government and more libertarian-oriented values is not going to let science breakthroughs happen in their state. So it's like, okay, well maybe it's just only when it's convenient do you want small government, as opposed to this is a very principled kind of decision, and so that was literally all that was referencing. So
yeah, no, I enjoyed that one a lot. Okay. We're here with Aaron Levie. He's the CEO of Box. We're recording live in front of an audience in New York City, our first public event ever. We are going to take a quick break and come back with audience questions. So we'll be back right after this ad. Ooh. And now we have a legitimate ad.
Oh, there's an ad? Are you going to play?
No, I'm going to read it.
Oh, you're going to read the ad? Okay, good. Can you describe the video in the ad? Okay.
No, it's not a commercial.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it's even better than a video. We have the people in the ad here in the audience.
Wow, this is wild. Okay.
So, we're innovating here. That's what I have to say.
This is crazy. So, are they going to come up or something?
No, they're just going to wave.
Oh, okay. They're not going to they should have to say their ad.
They should, but we're trying to get you on your flight on time.
Okay, got it. Okay, fair.
Okay. Shout out to Easy Newswire, a platform that is upending the traditional newswire industry, charging brands less to get their news out via top-tier publications like Reuters, Hearst, and yes, Big Technology. And they're helping publishers make money and learn about the community they serve. When companies announce news, it is their most important moment, and the traditional press release wire services that exist are often a major letdown. Easy Newswire solves this problem. The platform isn't limited to text. It's thinking innovatively about ways to collaborate with publishers to get the word out, and I'm a proud partner. Caitlin and Neil, the founders of Easy Newswire, are here in the room.
Okay, you guys should have had to have read that. That would be way more fun. Okay.
They're disrupting what has been a shakedown industry and are building something that will reshape how news is released and shared in the future. Caitlin and Neil, say hi. You have. Let's say hi again.
Hello.
And they'll be sticking around, so folks go say hi afterward to learn more.
Wow, shakedown.
Actually, the newswire industry. Obviously, I'm a partner.
Those were your words.
Yeah.
Those are your words? Wow.
You can ask your PR people how much it costs to put a press release out on the newswire. It's crazy.
Wow. We should have Ron DeSantis look into this. This is a huge problem. We got to ban the newswires.
That's right. This is what good government does. And we're back here on Big Technology Podcast with Aaron Levie, the CEO of Box. We're in front of a live audience here in New York.
Okay, cool.
He remains here. He hasn't left despite the reading of the tweets and the conversation about lab-grown meat and the live ad. So let's see if we can keep going with this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take some questions from the audience, and hopefully we'll be able to record them and get them on the podcast. So let's do that. If you have a question, raise your hand. I'll come over to you, state your name and where you're from, and I have a plan. I planted a question in the beginning with Ranjan Roy. He's one of our favorites on Big Technology Podcast. He's people who are listening to the show, you guys know Ranjan. Let's give it up for Ranjan. This guy he's amazing. He's on with us every Friday, and I think he has some questions.
Cool.
So